We have a guest in the studio who's joining us now, the MP for Samburu West. Before we welcome her and introduce her to the show, Siti Muga not only has a Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra, he also has the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 4 phone.
Carry on. And I also have the Galaxy Watch 5 Pro.
And the buds are wouldn't do.
The buds are wouldn't do.
Okay.
And they're doing what they did. They were returned. You see? She hasn't mentioned they were returned.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, every morning when one walks up these stairs to come to work, I choose to walk up the stairs as opposed to taking a lift. Believe me, every day, if I change the pace of my steps, this watch informs me. It's one of the things it does. It
Tells
tells
you walking faster.
Yes,
than normal.
but in telling me about the steps, it also tells me about my heartbeat. Remember, I mentioned in passing a while ago
that your heart beats.
there's even a song. Anyway, it's an old song. But that path doesn't need to be navigated because it is the same stairs and the stairs haven't changed. However, since we want to talk about the proverb, let me then take hold of the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra. Okay? Mheshimiwa, I will ask you what you think of this proverb. So let me say it. Better to be a devoted heathen than a devoted hypocrite.
Better to be a devoted heathen than a devoted hypocrite. The proverb is still from Western Sahara.
This is the last proverb from Western Sahara, the country that borders Morocco, Algeria, Mauritania, and the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
Yes.
Honorable Naisula Lesuuda, MP Samburu West. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
And
Siti Muga.
Siti Muga.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
So now answer the question. That proverb.
What I think, I don't know what the basis was, but
It is all right.
But yeah, but it's to be a hypocrite is a terrible thing. So
What's your interpretation of it? Better to be a what? Heathen?
Better to be a devoted heathen
Devoted hypocrite.
than a devoted hypocrite. Not a devoted heathen hypocrite. No. They're separate.
Okay.
Yes. Heathen, then
Than
hypocrite.
hypocrite.
Yes.
Is better. So a hypocrite, you think Mwesimu is far worse than everything else.
yeah. And you said it's the Kenyan proverb.
No. Western Sahara.
Oh, Western.
Yes. Kenyan proverb would have had something different.
Like a?
It is not a bad thing to be a heathen, but it's even better to be a hypocrite. That would have been a Kenyan proverb.
Oh, wow.
Mheshimiwa, welcome to the show.
Asante.
Karibu sana for being here. And you know, guys, I keep saying that I'm very proud of several people, and one of them is the Honorable Naisula Lesuuda for all the work that she's done and where she's gotten to. Started working, for those who are new to Jerusalem, championing peace long before she got into elective politics and into politics. In fact, you're an OGW, right?
Yes.
Order of the Golden Warrior. Ulipewa kwa nini?
Yes, I am. And thanks to His Excellency, the late President Mwai Kibaki. Actually, I think I was the youngest then. And for my efforts in peace work, especially between Laikipia, Baringo, and Samburu, and also did a lot of work in different parts of the country, Kuria, Isiolo, Marsabit, Tana River, and different parts of the country, and also during after post-election violence in areas like Naivasha and also Narok. But yeah, so yes.
So you were championing peace then?
Yes, and I still do champion
still do
peace,
champion
and,
peace
and
now.
people to live in peace and harmony, and to have people to live their full given life. Yes.
You got nominated to the Senate, and then you got elected by the people of Samburu West for the second time now.
Yeah.
One of the things that we noticed is when Professor Kithure Kindiki was being vetted by the National Assembly for the position of Interior CS, you caught the attention of the nation when you asked him a question and you got so emotional that you actually shed a tear. And the question you're asking is with regards to the constant insecurity and banditry, especially in your county of Samburu. And you're asking, when is this going to come to an end? The CS is now currently visiting the entire country and doing trips. Has he visited Samburu?
Yes, he has.
Mm-hmm.
And And for me, so I'm happy that this is now a national conversation. And that day why I broke down is that I was getting frustrated. And you can imagine as a leader, when you get frustrated, what happens to actually the citizens. Yeah, so that it has become a norm, one life is not too much to be a news story, to be discussed, to cause a national, to get the national attention. And then we've seen times where we've lost so many lives, and even our policemen, up to 42, nothing shakes us, nothing happens as a country. And so I'm happy that it's a national conversation, and it shouldn't end until banditry, until the criminals are flushed out of the north, and until people can live their lives peacefully and conduct their business as normal and as other people in this country. Do you know, I always imagine, like, if it's in the city or in another town, 2-3 people, it's always headline, it's on Twitter, how crime has gone up. You can imagine now 6-10 people just being shot randomly.
Right.
And that's how I wanted people to see it, that it's about lives. I wanted people to see this criminality in these areas, to have a human face to it. Some people just think it's it's their tradition, it's cultural. What is cultural and normal about people just being killed by other Kenyans in this part of the world? And so I am happy that since then Kindiki has shown to be accessible. He listens to the leaders. We have met him severally as the leadership of Samburu County. I have seen him meet other leaders from other areas, and I hope it's not just the psyche of being new in office. This will not take a day to clear. I've been on it for 15 years, So it's something that we have to be committed, all stakeholders, the leaders, the CS himself, the whole security team, the president himself, everybody. We have to be committed, and it has to be, for me, I see it as a process that we all have to be involved in until lives there actually matter, and people just to stop the nonsense that's going on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Allow me to strip the Mheshimiwa,
Sure.
we are coming down to the nitty-gritty of matters here. Naisula, what is the problem? Because you started this long before you became a legislator, right? Recognized for it. We've asked this question across board to different people who've come in, and for conflicts that are happening in different parts of the country. What is the cause of this conflict? Why are people dying because of this conflict? What's the problem?
Okay. So there are many reasons, and some are theories, some are factual, but I'll try to answer your question. So one, while engaging with the communities, there's just first generational hate. Just first hate that Samburu grows up knowing that Pokot. You see, we're not saying criminals of a certain community. We're saying Pokots are our enemies. Pokots grow up knowing Samburus, Turkanas are our enemies. So first there is that. And it's generational. From a time, I think a child would be told, please eat before, somebody, someone from that community comes in. And so we found it when we were going around through the communities that there was just, hate and despise of each community. Two, then, of course, there is the whole aspect of criminals and availability of guns, People being able to buy guns and decide that I'll go and steal livestock from others to stock. Theft, so criminals. Then there is the whole aspect. It's a theory, but I think it's the truth. The people who thrive in this, it's commercial. Because you wonder, like just 2 weeks ago, just a few days before CS Kindiki came to Samburu, we were in Samburu West, but in Samburu North, there are criminals in Southor who stole 900 cows. 1, 2, 3, 4, until 900. 900 cows do not disappear to thin air. They are driven. Where do they go? We've been in communication with the CS. They've been trying to do air surveillance and things like that. Where are they? So definitely my own thinking is that then there are people probably who are just ready to put them in lorries and maybe, and bring them here to Dagoretti. I don't know, but I'm sure if we were serious and we had intelligence really to follow, where. And maybe even later when we're talking about solutions, let's put trackers in this, in our livestock. Because it doesn't just make sense how someone can drive away 900 livestock and they just disappear. And I'm sure also there are people in business of the arms, the arms and the bullets and everything. Then, of course, there is the whole aspect of impunity, So someone comes, kills today, steals today, nothing happens to them. If anything, they dare you, the president comes there and says, dare us, do this. The next day, they kill people and take livestock. So they realize, you know what, we can get away with this. So there's a lot of impunity as well, which contributes and continues to become a problem in these areas. Of course, we can't run away from it. There are also some politicians who thrive in it, because going to your own community and telling them you have to stop this, definitely your political points go down. And so, but they are probably, and even just keeping quiet and not speaking about it, even when your community is in the wrong, for me, I take it that you're
condoning it.
You're condoning it. And so there are very, very many reasons to why this is happening. And that is why I would say this is all known to us. As I said, this is not something that started yesterday. It started, I've been born.
You've grown up. With this happening.
So 50 years or so. So, and then many research, many people, we've seen different groups, different people writing, even, documenting on what they think the problem is. And I don't think that is actually something that is not known to those who need to know and to take action.
Is it possible that a community does not know? If this has been happening for so many years, just intelligence is community. People will be the ones who start talking about, I've heard this, I have seen this. We see so-and-so who the other day did not have much wealth, but now they have wealth, and we hear that he's involved in the theft of cattle. Is it not possible that your constituents know who the perpetrators are?
That's the thing. And we have to really, I wanted to say, so I talked about the security apparatus, the politicians, the leaders. This is everybody. And I agree with you, including the community. And when we were when I talked to my constituents and even anyone else, especially from the pastoral communities, and I say also, it's all of us, it's our responsibility, because you can't tell me that, and I talk even to the mothers, you're milking a cow, which for sure your son brought home, and it killed, someone else died, in it. Why are you not asking your son where this cow came from? And so you're also part of the whole problem. Sometimes the criminals gang like 20, 30, 40 of them, or 50. And sometimes they go into a place and they eat goat, they have to be strong before they go. You want to tell me in that whole neighborhood, there's no one who actually saw. And I keep saying, today it's someone else, tomorrow it's you. When they involve themselves in what is it called? The highway, banditry. I know of one family where you condone until one day a guy shot his own mother. Because you don't know who is in a vehicle. Right. So as a community and as a people also, we have to say no to this and participate in community policing and say enough is enough. And so, and also on issue of impunity, what I had said is that also the whole aspect of revenge. So you can imagine my 900 cows have gone. So some of the leaders who went to that place told us that they found young men crying, because we were just herding and our livestock is gone. So they wait. So we talk to them as leaders and say, you know what, give the government time. We were actually telling CS Kindiki, we don't remember any government returning stolen livestock. So please be the first one. So you can imagine, then that family, they are left. Sometimes they leave the calves because they can't run with the cows. Yeah. So they leave the calves. The cows are just, there. They have no mothers. They have no milk. They are fed on uji. The parents are wondering, the owners now are wondering, what do we do? What do you think 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year later, those young men will do. So they will go and revenge. So now they will go and also bring their own cows. So that also contributes, because then people are just helpless. They give government time. As leaders, we talk to them. We're like, please don't do anything, don't whatever. Someone will just probably sell something else, go buy a gun and say, you know what, this has to come. I'm taking a revenge. And so it's been revenge counter revenge over time.
The situation in the county you belong to is dire, and perennially so. And it tugs the heartstrings when one hears of the killings, the never-ending problems in that particular county. But it makes me ask this question, because this situation that has now morphed into what we call banditry has a cultural background to it. Rites of passage. People did this because of the rite of passage. Then it morphed. It's now, in many ways, a commercial venture. Now, one of the problems with culture is that communities where, I'm talking research, communities where certain cultural practices, negative and or positive, where they've been maintained, it has to do with the literacy levels.
That's true.
What is the literacy level of your county?
I wouldn't have the facts top of my head, just so that someone doesn't go and get.
27%.
But of course, low.
27%.
Okay. So I agree with you. And a lot of efforts have been put in place, and especially for me, my constituency. When you see me so frustrated, it's because if you come to my constituency, Samburu West, and why we have even been victims of the attacks so much, is because my children are going to school. Actually, if you come to my constituency and look for young men to go and carry guns, actually now they are rethinking, how do we do this? You will not find. And I can take you to my constituency, you see, and that is what we took CS. Why actually my constituency was the first in the last term to get 90 NPRs is because we went with the head of GSU and we took a round of my constituency and the border. We've done infrastructure for schools. Parents are taking their children to school. We have subdivided our land. People have title deeds. People are doing agriculture, farming in their own land. People have just changed their lifestyle there. And now they're so sad that we are being taken back to what we didn't want. So I agree that there are areas, parts of our county, actually in some of our constituencies, where we still have issues of education, and that's why I'm very passionate about education, because I agree with you, most of these cultural issues, even to do with FGM, when a girl goes to school, they will make their own decisions or try to convince their parents otherwise. And so education actually is a game changer. I agree with it, and that's why I'm very, very passionate about education.
You know, beyond even education, there is an anthropological issue to this. I'm going to explain what I mean. You see, if you were to take the evolutionarist view of things and you look at how mankind evolved from being hunter-gatherer, the point where they became farmers and what have you. Now, communities that embraced farming are communities that learned to live in one place and do their business in one place. Now, eventually what they did was they let go of the tendencies they had of being able to protect themselves and being able to forage, this process of fighting, getting from each other and so forth. Now, communities that have remained pastoral retain that particular trait. It's anthropological. The problem is that when it even comes to things like land tenure and understanding land tenure, if you look very loosely at this background, the understanding of land tenure will be very different. Those who've had a history of staying put in one place and being agricultural and following those norms will function in a particular way. The others will not. And their whole view of land and how they understand it and how they understand tenure will be different. Now, education then comes in, because education provides that opportunity for you to understand that there is more to life than what you have understood it to be. people listen to their leaders. If the voice that you represent has brought about changes, and it has, if anyone follows the history of the county you come from, it has tremendous change. But clearly there are others who work against it because they have a completely different perspective, and they're also leaders. Why is it that these leaders are never named and said, so-and-so supports this, so-and-so does this? Because it is not that they are not known.
Ni adui ya maendeleo.
Yes. These people,
Yeah.
it's not even adui, Eric. These people commit crimes against humanity. Because when you look at the lives that are lost, when you look, not lost because they die, no. The dying bit is direct. The lives lost here is the opportunity for young men to take advantage of education and to become something other than what they currently are. That's the lives lost that I'm talking about. Opportunities. This is what they do. They're actually killing an entire community without even, and other people don't seem to see it. They look at the people who die.
So who
physically.
do you want to name and shame?
And I don't know them. If I did,
Let me
if I
say
did, I would
this.
have mentioned. Yes.
Let me say this and also respond now that you've said it. Also say that because I've remembered. This also happens, Ndo, because some communities also want to expand land. Because when you keep displacing people and you're moving in, so that is also a reason. There's some communities who live in very harsh climatic conditions, and as now that you've talked about land, I've always remembered that, because then you're moving people away from where they live and you move in. On about leaders, and it's very unfortunate. Naming, they've been named. Arrested, they've been arrested. Taken to court, they have been taken to court. The thing is, and I always say it, and as a government and those responsible with the naming, arresting, and taking them to court, if you do not have sufficient evidence, if you've not done your homework well, you're actually creating a hero in those communities. Do you know there are some of my colleagues who just before elections pray that they're arrested? I don't know if you know that.
Well, we understand the yes.
Yeah,
how
because
that would help.
especially if I was arrested because I'm defending my community, or because I am said to, to defend my community and to arm them and to whatever. Let me tell you, you'll be a hero in those parts of the country. And I find it just so ridiculous. I don't know. So for me, I always see it as, honestly, if you're not gonna go the full length and to a reasonable conclusion, which is jail and funga kabisa and throw the keys in hell, please don't start it. Because you're just building.
You're funning it.
You're funning it, actually. Yeah, leave them. Let go dance to them. Because if clearly you're just arresting to be seen to be doing something, and then you actually don't do it to the end, let's not do anything.
Let's take a break. 28 minutes to 9. The Honorable Naisula Lesuuda is the Member of Parliament for Samburu West. We are talking about the constant incidences of banditry, insecurity in Samburu constituency and other parts of northern Kenya. And we're asking ourselves, what will it take to have a permanent solution to this? Is it going to be arming of chiefs, like the CS Kinduki has said? Is it going to be recruitment of more youth into the Kenya Police Reservist or the National Police Reservist? What is it that's going to take to have this coming to an end? We'll be continuing this conversation shortly. Let's take a look at the weather forecast and traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
West, some of the comments coming in. Karonete Good says, I'd say education and empowerment of the youth is a solution. It's the only way to break outdated cultural practices. But the problem is politicians thrive in poverty and ignorance. Jeremiah goes with what you said, Naisula, that tag some of the cows with trackers and get to know where they're taken. And Andrew is saying banditry in the North Rift is a law enforcement problem that requires comprehensive solution to reduce access to weapons and ammunition, enhance intelligence gathering, prevent cattle rustling, curb money laundering, and restore order.
Naisula, one of the suggestions, one of the recommendations that we heard from another member of parliament was that if there is adequate representation of security agencies and forces in these areas, that it will act as a deterrent for some people. I believe what he said was every kilometer, let there be some kind of, security presence. And if the people would be bandits, soon to be bandits, future bandits, whatever you want to call them, see this presence, the likelihood of them engaging in these activities of conflict then would reduce. Do you agree with that?
Okay, so my thinking on that will be, and I get from all the comments that have come in, is that this needs a holistic approach. So definitely from the security angle, that's what you've talked about, enough presence. Although I can tell you for a fact, for example, like in Baragoi, we actually have the army there, we have the GSU camp there, we will now have NPR. So I don't think that's really, it is a solution. It's part of the solution. And the inclusion of NPR will help because they understand the terrain. They are closer there. So it will be, fast response as well. So definitely from the security angle, that is important. 2 is to make sure, now the security angle, what has been said as well. So the issues to do with the police, enforcement, issues of intelligence. I think we need to work smarter than this. I find it so interesting when I had one of my colleagues say, it's just young men in a bush there who have never gone to school, so we're being overrun as a country, as educated people, sophisticated intelligence, as in with everything as a country, we are accepting that we are being overrun by a few 1% young men who've not gone to school. They are more sophisticated than us, even in just gathering intelligence of where they, they are using more sophisticated weapons. I'm telling you, they're M16s and they're using more sophisticated weapons than our police officers down on the ground. And so ensure that the security component and the aspect is fully thought through and we use it, including intelligence, before even we get to the social aspects of education, of empowerment, because we first have to secure people. I've built schools. I've built a school somewhere where no children are going to that school right now. So, we have to decide what comes first. What do we put?
The cart before the horse.
Yes, because now if you tell me it's just about education, I agree. And I build my schools and everything. People have run away from that. Who will access the school? If you say it's about empowerment, so we've put up conservancies in some places where the community can also engage and get income from it. One of my conservancies the other day was vandalized, so I am unable to do development when my people are not secure, and we're not secure also where we are. So then the whole issues now of, I remember that time when there was semblance of peace in Laikipia and Samburu, we had done a whole program and project which we presented to the then President, His Excellency, the late Mwai Kibaki, which we were calling the peace dividends, where we were saying, now let's put money. Let's walk the talk. Let's put money in these areas. Let's do security roads. Let's open up these areas, because sometimes the people just still go down an escarpment. Even those police officers who you're telling to go follow those livestock, without them using air support, they can't access. So we're like, open up the roads, let's put up the schools, let's ensure that our chiefs make sure the schools, it's compulsory, children to go to school and other aspects. And so we tried, but as usual, when it comes to, resources following our conversation.
But Mheshimiwa, this negative culture is rewarding.
Yeah.
The incentives for reward are greater than the incentives for going to school.
Yeah.
What reinforces behavior and what brings about a situation where now people are conditioned is because there is nothing that actually deters them. Apart from the words and the threats, over time, it has been seen that this passage is the same history if you think of the history of education. It's when people understood that this education had benefits that people...
Later.
Yes, exactly. So what you've done is, actually that's what you do. You have put up the pillars, you have put up the structures within which what we're talking about can actually happen. But it has to be supported by these negative cultural traits being presented as non-rewarding. So long as they are rewarding, so long as people see benefits, there is no way they are going to leave it. Now, the only people who can ensure that this message is passed is the government.
By action.
Yes, it's the government. I'm looking at the history of this country and what we then called in the Moi era as tribal clashes. Okay? Now, if I look at what happened, say, at the coast, I grew up at the coast. There was something called Kayabombo. If you follow the brutal manner in which the government dealt with that Kayabombo, I have never heard it as much as a squeak about that. People will dissent, but they find more peaceful ways of dissenting. I look at the areas during the so-called tribal clashes where the government decided to do something about it. Literally. Again, people found ways of coexisting. You can murmur, complain. When the government determines that they want to put an end to something, they can.
They can do it.
Yes.
They can.
So-
they can, I agree. And you know, so Moi, finish shifter. There
Yes.
was cattle rustling in Northeastern. There is no cattle rustling in Northeastern now. They're struggling with issues to do with radicalization, terrorism, you know, which is also an international issue. But shifter, done and dusted. Mount Elgon here, during Kibaki's time, done, you can't hear a single word. Mishuki, Mungiki, terrorizing people here in Kiambu, Nairobi, dealt with it. Done. And so, unless we get to the bottom of it, of who else is benefiting in this issue of cattle rustling, as much as now you're saying it's cultural and traditional, what if, and I agree, and also the government can't keep running away from it, so that when we raise it and we say you have a stake in this, they say, but even you politicians, your government, your what, there's something I can't do, even as a politician, even if I wanted this to end. It has to be you deciding that this issue has to come to a stop. How is your business?
You deal with it.
You deal with it.
Do you think, Mheshimiwa, the government has been captured? When you talk about state capture and the issue of insecurity in the north, like you're saying, so many administrations and none is unable to decisively and conclusively deal with this issue. Sounds like, like you're asking who's benefiting. If you go into the question of who's benefiting and who is making the government not put in the effort that's required, that just connects to capture.
But it could be the business angle, it could also be the politics, but this is the best time to deal with it. We're not going to an election tomorrow, so please deal with it now. You have 3 years to recover if it's also about politics, whatever the reason is. And also, later, as it has been said by Muga, is that it will pay off later. The communities will realize. Actually, I think they will say, honestly, we should have done this so many years. So the immediate effect will be so painful, it will be bad and everything. But over time, we'll all say, honestly, we should have embraced the end of this like so many years.
What you're saying, everybody agrees. All right? Even those that have occupied Harambe House as CSS for Interior, all of them, go back even to Sunkuli and the rest, they've all had these conversations. And they've said this, and they've had meetings with delegations from your region, they've had leaders from your region. Same thing continues to happen.
If it's about us, the leaders, and I've said it even in meetings where we are, see, you just ignore us. See, you go do what you know. If you think we are an impediment to this, the political leaders, it's good you've called us for a meeting and you've told us, and actually CS Kindiki has told us. He's told us, if you guys as politicians also, who are doing this in your counties, please go and tell them that this story is coming to an end. And if he keeps his word, and we have to give him a benefit of doubt, he just got into office. If for any reason you feel Naisula is going to be an impediment to this issue which you actually want to deal with once and for all, you've already talked to us. You've told us, please don't come crying when I come to your community, because what will also happen is that if the force that has been mentioned is used, definitely my community will push me to do press conferences. I'll be here again saying the way the government is finishing my people.
Yep.
And then we'll have human rights activists also saying that we have to do this. And so of course it has to be done with the whole within the human
confines of the law.
But something has to give. Something has to give.
You've got to push the law to the end.
You know what we're discussing here? It's like an epidemic. You know why? If you look at, I come from a region where the HIV epidemic wiped out almost an entire generation, literally wiped out. Children became heads of households. Now this violence in the North Rift and the regions thereof is doing exactly the same thing. When you have young people who haven't taken the benefit of education and have brought themselves to speed and to be alive and well and competitive in the 21st century, you've lost that generation completely. They'll be disadvantaged for a very long time because the older people will go the way of the world, they will die, they'll move on. Now the people who then take over, if the numbers are uneducated, they are uninformed, and because they're going to grow up and that's what they're going to be. That community will talk about how they're marginalized, and the truth is that their own people marginalize them. They look at the government and blame the government. Now, this is what concerns me. This is the tragedy. That we are losing generations and somehow one doesn't see it.
Or is it seen? I would think that it is being seen, but we're not seeing the real potential danger that this is causing. You can see the mothers who are seeing just like you said, Naisula, mothers who are seeing their young men bring cows home and then they milk them tomorrow. In the back of their mind, they know that this is not theirs. They know where it's coming from. They hear the news. It travels very quickly in a community. You know a cow is missing from here and you suddenly have one in your homestead tomorrow. You know that 20 are missing from here and then you've heard that there are young men in the community who are now brandishing weapons. You know that there's something going wrong. The older community has knowledge that the younger community is being lost on a daily basis. So for me, the same pandemic, the virus or the cancer that is eating away at this is non-willingness to do something about the situation. It's not lack of knowledge.
You know,
politicians know, leaders know, the community knows. But how willing are we? And that's what I keep saying. And I think it's something that eats away, whether you're going to look, if you want to come to Nairobi and look in the public service, you want to come to Nairobi and look into parliament. It's not a matter of that we don't know what the issue is. It's a matter of how willing are we to do something about it before it eats us to death while standing alive.
It's manifested loudly in Mheshimiwa's neck of the woods. But ask yourself, even in the cities, in the metropolises, ask yourself, how many children go about businesses their fathers, mothers are unaware of, and nobody asks, how did you buy this? Where did you get this from? You see, this idea of not being willing to challenge norms that are clearly negative, it has become a national pastime. You see, so it isn't as though communities that are known to be pastorals are the ones who have a problem. No, it's actually a national problem. Because how do you then see something that is going wrong and you somehow just push it aside? Why? How do you normalize that situation where it is normal for you to ignore harm? You can see it, but you ignore it. How do you think we got here?
And as I put it, is that you never know when it will come to bite you.
It will come to bite you.
That son of yours who keeps going out and bringing things home because they engaged in highway banditry, tomorrow you might be in a vehicle and you don't know, and he doesn't know that you're in that vehicle.
That you're in the vehicle.
Yeah, and shoot, and you know.
become a victim.
Yeah, you become a victim.
Washima, you've mentioned the National Police Reservists. Kithure Kindiki has talked about the NPR. The president himself has also talked about the NPR. Is the NPR one of the solutions to this? This is arming civilians to provide own security.
Okay, so what happens is that the whole concept of NPR, and we passed it in Parliament, because so it's anchored in a law, is that so they're civilians, they are not just picked. So they are picked by the chiefs, so it's not just random young people come here. So they are picked within the community, and mostly the areas that, the areas that border probably the other community where the criminals would come from. And then they are vetted, in all aspects, including fingerprints and everything. So if you pass the vetting process, then you go for training. You can't also just give a gun to a civilian. So like, for example, the ones that the president, the additional, when he came to Baragoe, they are undergoing training right now in Samburu. And later, like the ones who did last term, they go all the way to Manyani. Sometimes they do proper training. And then they are kept in camps under an inspector. You can't just, as a country, it would be ignorant to
so
just
they're not just at home.
They're not just at home with their guns. And if you have to leave to another county, or even within the county, if you have to travel or something, you leave it at the armory.
Okay.
So, and then you're all under the OCPD, the area OCPD. The ideal would even be that they're put together, this community and this community. Actually, in one of my areas, they were together, Pokot NPRs and Samburu NPRs, because also you're not working for your community. You're working
for the citizens.
So that even when your own community, when they're criminals, if they go to, let's say, Tiati and steal from them, NPRs based in Samburu should be able to track the criminals in their own community. And so why initially it was banned or stopped was when it was realized that some NPRs were serving their communities and not necessarily doing the work that they're supposed to do. Or I think in some area when some criminals were killed, and then 2 of them were NPRs, And so that also for me shouldn't then be just a reason, because in all disciplined forces you can't miss one or two
criminal elements.
Criminals in elements, So for me, I think it's a good policy, because then they work together with our police and with the APs and the GSUs, so they work together. So I think it's something, and also the chiefs, because I've seen many people saying, please don't mix the administration work with security
police work.
Or with police work. So this is how it works. And I was one of the people who requested that the chiefs be rearmed. They used to be armed. Because, so how it happens is that, so when people steal from here, of course the cows will go through a location and all that. And normally the chief has to be asked, because they follow the footprints and everything. So the chief normally goes with the police officers or the NPR. Naya anatembea na fimbo. The chiefs, they're just, and we lost one actually, because then he's just leading. He has to lead as the chief of that location to track and follow the criminals. So they are at risk. So unless the chiefs won't go with the police and the NPR, then I'm okay with it. But if they have to follow because they understand
part of the security
delegation, why are you risking that chief's life? Because normally they're the ones even leading. They're the ones doing this to the bushes as they walk, because they understand their location and their area. And then you're telling them, you walk with your fimbo and we're doing a security operation. So if the chiefs will not be part of it. So I know sometimes people, when they see that on Twitter or in the news, it's quick. We are quick to say no, they shouldn't, but it's good when you understand where we are coming from.
Okay.
Mheshimiwa, there was this unit that used to be called anti-stock theft.
It's still there.
It's still there.
Yeah.
Where exactly is it?
Like in my constituency, we have one in a place called Longewan.
One.
Yeah, we have one. We have a camp.
Of how many people?
There would be most likely 20-something, 30, thereabouts.
And that's adequate.
No, we need more.
And how do they determine who joins this unit?
So that's a security.
Well, the thinking behind it was that you actually ensure that people in that unit came from that sort of area where people had livestock, people who are pastoralists, because it makes absolutely no sense When you bring someone who comes from a background where they are fishermen to take them to that terrain, they will
Actually, they don't even understand what you're all on about.
Where do you even begin? And the reverse would also be true. So I am simply saying, would it help the situation if that particular unit was given more teeth and more numbers? Because their training is actually very specific. It's a special unit. It's not your average unit.
Yeah.
But maybe being a specialized unit, just like the other crack units, if there's an NPR, then the anti-stock theft police unit is dealing at the other higher level. It's a unit of maybe attached to the DCI. It has intelligence gathering. It knows how to then lead the NPR in an operation. If you have 700 ATPUs,
Not necessarily 700, but a number that is daunting.
Maybe strategic. So maybe that
more-
camp there
more units.
and more units
Yeah,
in
spread out.
strategic. Spread out along the like the entire Suguta belt. It's such a long belt. I mean, all the way from Tiati all the way to Turkana. It's such a long. It's a very long belt.
to have more officers.
So it would help.
Yes.
How
And
do
so we really need to have the security guys sit down, map up the entire region, and just look at it, and with the intention, as we have all agreed, that this has to stop. So there are some decisions that they'll have to make. Resources have to be put in place to just also deal with the security component of it, as we do the social, along. Yeah.
The president has made several commitments to this. He has said, Nasio tafadhali, banditry has to come to an end. NPR will be revived. Now we've seen the CS for Interior, his CS for Interior also saying we're going to rearm the chiefs, we're going to give the chiefs officers in the chiefs camp and all this. When you look at what the government has been saying from the leadership of the president and then his CS, do you have faith that this time there is likely to be a difference?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, I find CS Kindiki more, I don't know whether because also he's a politician, so he understands. You'd understand some issues on the ground, because also not all politicians are bad, by the way.
He's empathetic.
He's empathetic, so he listens more, he consults more, and makes decisions with the input of the locals. So he listens and he sees that this then can work, and it works. So I might not discuss some of the security interventions that he has put in place, but I can assure you I have slept for a few days.
Now you have a bit of
I have a bit of
peace,
some peace
of mind.
Although I know that we're not there yet. Oh God, no. Actually, sometimes when I talk like this, it's like you've jinxed it, and then so but at least there's some interventions that have been put in place, and the community is also more alert. We've had semblance of peace and calm for about 10 years. Yeah, between Laikipia, Samburu, and even Tiati, and so people are also relaxed. So we're seeing some semblance of calm.
Mheshimiwa Naisula Lesuuda, MP Samburu West, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for coming here for the first time. Come again soon.
Thank you for having me, and please let's keep this conversation going. Let it not end until we have total peace in the north.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you.